Good morning, everybody. How are we all? Good? I'll say a few words in German. I think most people are German here. I want to acknowledge this beautiful city and acknowledge my...
Not the English weather.
I told you in a very
Leider habe ich das englische Wetter mitgebracht. Aber es ist wirklich mein großes Vergnügen, hier zu sein. Bin nicht leider deutscher Muttersprachler, aber ich wollte nur sagen, dass ich wollte meinen Freund Markus bedanken für die Gelegenheit, hier zu sein. Und auch die organizers in American Chamber Vienna. So it's really a pleasure to be here today. What I thought that I'd do was talk for about 30 minutes. First of all, can everybody see the screen? More importantly, can you see me? Good. I'll probably move around a bit. So what I thought that I would do is talk for about 30 minutes and then take questions for about 30 minutes. For very Austria-specific Google-related questions, aka the difficult ones, I would like to remind you, of course, that my friend who invited me here will be delighted to take any of those questions. But any questions about the awesome, benign power of technology and where the future's going, of course, I'm your man for that kind of stuff. Okay? I should probably start by saying, in a sort of uncertain world, I'm a genuine optimist about the transformative power that technology can bring. To a certain extent, to work for an American technology company, you kind of have to drink the Kool-Aid. You actually have to a certain extent, believe in this, and I do. I also know that actually it can be quite a challenging, difficult journey, and I've actually got some examples of things here where Google hasn't quite got it right, and I'd like to reflect a little bit upon that. First thing I want to start with by saying, hopefully everyone can actually see this, I think we're actually very early in our journey around technology. And so as I share a view on the future, I'm going to share a view of some current trends, specifically around mobile. I'm going to share a view of some emerging trends, which we see around something called machine learning, which I think, or AI, which everyone's heard of, but actually you may be struggling to see what the practical impact of machine learning aka artificial intelligence might be. And then I'm going to move a little bit towards maybe a kind of a trend that I think will start to dominate all of our lives in 5 to 10 years' time, which will be the trend around automation. I'm not just going to use Google examples here, I am going to touch upon some other organizations as well. I'm very used to both public speaking and also the rough and tumble of public discourse. So please, if you don't agree, then please do shout and ask me a question. Hopefully it can be an interactive and useful session. So as I said, I think actually we are at the very start of this. Google is 18 years old. Facebook though is I think only about 12 or 13 years old. Twitter about 10 years old. And actually many organizations that are now, let's say, thought leaders in the space are really very, very young organizations. And the impact of this, I think, is only being felt in lots of different businesses now as well, and the impact across all of our lives. I'm always kind of reminded, actually, sometimes it's very easy to forget how quickly that things move on. So I'd say many people here have a device similar to this, if not this actual device, so a modern smartphone, where with haptic touch, where the screen performs everything. I often actually bring this. See, I often actually bring this device though to presentation. This is a Russian-made mobile phone from guess which year? When was this device out? It still works, by the way. It's got Russian time on.
93, 94 or something like that.
Everyone always says that. It's actually 1999. So it's actually not as long ago. Does anybody remember the big Nokia phone, the one that we all had? Yes.
We had big ones here too in the beginning of the 90s.
Okay, well maybe Austria, as always, was a little bit further ahead. I take your point. And actually, if you look at the film Wall Street back in 1987, very famous scene, Michael Douglas on the beach, he takes basically his briefcase out and he has to answer it. And of course, it's kind of moved forward to this. Now, at some point, because actually we are still in a let's move this chair. Because we are still in a kind of transformative phase, these devices may appear at some point to be terribly old-fashioned. One of our co-founders regards these devices as actually something incredibly inconvenient. He's thinking that his name is Sergey Brin, and he actually thinks that like to have to go to the enormous inconvenience, and bear in mind this is West Coast America, of removing it from your pocket and turning it on and then doing something with it, he regards as absolutely incredible. So he developed a device that probably many of you have actually heard of, but probably have never seen, which I'm now going to show you. Now this is a device that actually we subsequently discontinued and will re-emerge in a different way. But actually, what is the use case here? The use case here is it actually, the hypothesis behind this device is really incredible. The hypothesis here is that you don't have to go, as I said, to the enormous inconvenience of removing this device from your pocket and doing something with it, okay? You actually have it all here. So actually, these actually are Pro glasses too, I had these specially made. And it kind of looks like, if this is decommissioned now because this is not, we're not actively using this, but it looks like a screen about the size of my hand, and it looks like it's maybe about half a meter away. So it kind of looks like this, so I can see everything. And it's linked by Bluetooth to my phone, so everything that's on my phone, I can actually see it. But as I said, the reason why I think we were in an early and slow phase is that actually, I think that whilst this may or may not be the type of device of the future, I think there will be the speed of advancement is really quite staggering. I'll walk around a little bit here. I can actually pass this around if anyone would like to have a look at it, because it's one of those things that actually people have heard of, but maybe have not necessarily actually seen. It will probably re-emerge, by the way, as a B2B product at some point in the future. Okay. Does anyone know who this gentleman is? Anyone ever spent any time in England? Probably no one else outside of England. Okay, so if you're an Anglophile, okay. His name is Arthur C. Clarke. He was very inspired by the scientists of the past. So he had a wonderful, he had a bunch of laws, a bit like Newton and stuff. He's not quite as famous. But his third law was any sufficient advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And actually, there have been free thinkers and philosophers, and if you think back to Leonardo da Vinci, didn't know how to build a helicopter, but thought like some sort of a flying device would be a really good idea. Now, there are obviously, if I was to update this a little bit, anyone working in the tech industry will be familiar with Moore's Law, 1965. So every 2 years, microchips speed will increase. You may not have heard of Nielsen's Law from 1998. Every 2 years, bandwidth will double. And I'd never heard of Kreider's Law, in which every 2 years the amount of storage capacity will double. In fact, actually, currently every 2 years the amount of storage capacity is increasing about tenfold. Such is incredible. But there have always been people who peer into the future. So, the first trend that I'll share with you, peering into the future, this was a few years ago. This is our chairman, it's a chap called Eric Schmidt, and he declared that our organisation was mobile first. So I'm going back a little bit here. It's still a current trend. It's still playing out in that device that's circling the room now, or in versions of that device. I always remember 2 years ago we issued a patent. It was on April Fool's Day, and the patent was for an Android bandage. So it was actually a bandage that you'd like put on your arm, and again you wouldn't have to bring a phone around. You would be like James T. Kirk, speaking into your arm. Now that was, I think, as I understand it, that was an April Fool's joke. The point is that again, this is an incredible trend here. And what things are we actually seeing here? Well, first of all, it's an incredibly democratic trend. I note with interest that Android passed out Windows as the world's largest operating system, I think, a few days ago. It's actually a tribute to the incredible power of Microsoft's Windows. I think it's been at the top for 25 years, an incredibly successful product. And Android obviously has an applicability to both business but also consumer usage. But I'm reminded of Tim Berners-Lee's famous phrase of "this is for everyone." And it really is. It's the democratizing power of this is really quite staggering. But if I take you back to just before 2010, this is a real thing. If you can't see this at the back, there were roughly about 50 or 60 different types of phones. And before Android came out, and around about the time that the iPhone came out, Every time that we designed a bit of software for a mobile phone, we had to design it not just once, as you would have to do with Android, but for every single different phone, with every single different slightly nuanced operating system. And if we fast forward to this being a trend for every single person, well, that's obviously where we've come from, and so now where are we going to? And what I like to do actually at this stage of any presentation is actually get everyone to tell me how many devices, how many connected devices that they have on them. So I'm going to put my hand up and say I've got one, which is this. Okay? Now, I imagine most people have a phone, so I'm going to assume that everybody here has one. Who has two connected devices on them? You can include a laptop, smartphone, tablet. Okay. There you go. You can probably, okay. Now who has three? All right. Okay. Well, I'm now going to go. Who has four? If you count that. Okay. That's the amount of connected devices. Have a guess about how many connected devices are now in your home that you may not even realise are actually connected. So the average home is between 7 and 10. And you keep a bunch of your laptops and stuff. You probably have up to 15 to 20 things that are connected there. And I think we're only at the start of this. It's really quite incredible what's actually happening here. And of course there are many different use cases. Apparently, we check our phones on average 150 times a day. Now when I ask an audience this, they always say, but no, I don't. No, my son does. I don't. Okay, that would be the typical response there. Anyone here have teenage children or sort of pubescent children? Instagram and all this kind of things. It's a disease, okay, as we think. Of course, then when I kind of find myself checking my phone and then I tell my son not to check his, I realise he may be imitating some of my behaviour or some of my wife's behaviour. But apparently, this is confirmed. We on average, we check our phones 150 times a day. If you want to prove this though, there is a great app you can download, it's called Checky, and it'll actually just count the amount of times that you turn the phone on. So I allow you to check the health quality of your life by the amount of times that you've actually checked it. So, this is a sort of fictitious example here. Someone who gets up first thing in the morning, what do? They turn the phone on, they probably check what time it is, or they maybe check the news headlines. And then they have a wonderfully fulfilling life, and then they finally obviously crash into bed exhausted from the amount of time they spent staring at a screen at about 10 past 11 in the evening, at which they use the flashlight app. My point is, this particular trend is so pervasive now, and these things and these devices, from waking up and reading news, to buying a ticket, to reading an article about a concert, to checking your email on the bus, using the flashlight to find an earring in this particular case, maps to get to there is an incredible variety of things. It's kind of a life guide. It's really the speed at which these devices have become part of our life is just staggering. And I think it's only really just started. And of course, not just in affluent, wonderful Vienna and Austria is this a mega trend, but of course around the rest of the world as well. So some numbers here, and for those of you at the back, we reckon, well, I think the world's population is about 7.5 billion. If anyone knows better, then then please shout. And roughly, about between 40 and 50% of the world's population now has access to some sort of connectivity. Okay, so that's rough. They would be our estimates. I don't think anybody really knows. But roughly half of the world's population. By 2022, the world's population will be slightly higher, 8 billion-ish, and the internet population, or the connected population, will be something in the region of 7 billion. Think of the we're lots of business people. Think of the commercial possibilities of that trend. Incredible, absolutely incredible opportunity here. If I think of, for example, what Google is doing in sub-Saharan Africa, there's very slow dial-up speeds, or very slow connectivity speeds. So we launched a version of YouTube that was about 1/10 of the bandwidth, so that people in Uganda, Kenya could actually access it. And if I see what our competition is doing, exactly the same thing. They're actually designing products and services to work in, for example, India. If I see the amount of money that Amazon's pumping into India to try and bring the Indian consumer towards an Amazon lifestyle, is really quite incredible. And of course, it's spreading all around the world. This is a real example. We've used this gentleman. He's a cattle herder, salesman, farmer I think in the Kenyan uplands. And he uses his phone, you can see him doing it here, and he uses it to buy and sell cattle. He probably uses it for other things too, but it's become like a marketplace for him. And this is in a part of the world and in a business that would have previously been quite impervious to this. And of course, the kind of mega trend on the internet, of course, is the move away from words, and again, the enormous inconvenience of having to read something, when of course everything or many things are now available online via video. And we are proud to have the YouTube brand that actually is a strong part of this ecosystem. And again, if you look at your own behaviour here, we are all shifting very much towards this. Enormous proportion of the world's internet traffic is video now, and is only growing. YouTube, in fact, I think it was a week or two ago, Marcus, passed out 1 billion watch hours per day. So 1 billion hours watched on YouTube a day. Now again, we're hurtling towards something here. To a certain extent, we don't always know where we're going, but certainly, if you look at what users are doing, then this is what they're doing. They're spending an awful lot of time here. Now, I'll leave it up to you to debate the societal consequences of this, but as I'm really reflecting back what's currently happening now in this particular trend. And of course, it's having an enormous economic impact here. I tried to put Austria at the centre of this. It looks more like Italy is, but hopefully you'll forgive me as a stupid foreigner. But the economic impact is quite incredible. Okay, on to a second trend. A lot of you will have heard about this, so machine learning or artificial intelligence. Some people are very fearful of this. There's a kind of a sense that you remember the sci-fi films when you were younger about the robots taking over the world. Allow me, if I can, to try and demystify this slightly for you. I'm now going to start with some examples, and then I want to talk a little bit about how this is different from other things that we've seen in the past. So here's one use case for machine learning. Now, maybe not the people here at the back, maybe the people in the first 4 or 5 tables. How many dogs are on this slide? And there is a serious point behind this, by the way. How many?
10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, oh. How many muffins are on this side? Now, what do you think is going on here? Why am I showing you this? Why is this an example of machine learning?
Image recognition. Image recognition.
Exactly. Yeah. What machine learning is, at its most basic, is inputting data into the computer. In this case, actually via a library. There's a Google product. It's not as famous as YouTube, but it's very influential. It's called TensorFlow. Inputting a bunch of things in, and allowing the computer to then start to learn itself what is a dog and what in this particular case is a muffin. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to up the complexity here, so I hope you're digesting your breakfast. So again, there is a serious point here. I'm going to ask the audience how many dogs are on this slide. Okay, no, fine. There are 8. But, and there are also 8, what I think, are bagels here as well. Now, let's consider it a complexity challenge here. Okay, the most recognisable feature of a dog is its face. Less recognisable feature of a dog, although we as humans recognise this, of course, is the curled up dog, i.e. the position that dogs like to sleep in. Okay. So again, so what's actually going on here? Let me just give you another dog-related example. And again, I just find this useful actually for people to understand this. The technique that's being employed here, there is a library, and the machine is taught, teaches itself how to interpret this. So what happens here is, imagine, if you will, every single one of these dots is like a neuron in the human brain and can actually learn something. Okay, so neuron 1 here, the one here in the corner, learns, because it's seen millions of these photos, that actually this shape has an edge. That might be the first thing. It then feeds this up to the next layer, where actually it has 2 edges. And then maybe up at the next layer, it will actually see that it has like maybe a face, or sorry, maybe a tongue, or teeth, or a kind of open part of its body, which is its mouth. And this technique, which is called deep neural networks, this technique basically allows the computer over time to actually start to see what it is actually seeing here without having been programmed. And here is the big difference. When Big Blue or Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov at chess in 1997, so 20 years ago, when it beat Garry Kasparov, it did it because the computer had been taught to beat it. Okay? The difference now is that the computers are now able to teach themselves how to do it, and so don't need to be programmed by a human being. And that's what's really going on here with machine learning. So let me just walk you through this. Hopefully you can actually see this. So here is a dog. Here is another dog. Hopefully you can see this. Here is another dog, slightly less distinct. Okay, hopefully you can see this. Here is this even less distinct photo of a dog in a wash basket. And here's a really difficult one. But again, because of the library and because it's taught itself and the way the information passes up here so that it can eventually hypothesize that this is a dog. And you can see there is, for those of you in the back, there is a dog sort of tucked in beside the washing, looking like a bit of washing in a wash basket. And this is effectively what machine learning is. Let me give you a very practical example here. I don't know if anyone watched the Paralympics last year after the Olympics in Brazil. What I didn't know was about 93% of Brazilians don't speak any English. But the closing ceremony, in this particular case, I think, was in English only. And so Google Translate was actually able, in real time, to actually translate it with nobody involved at all, and to a very high standard, and using machine learning. So as this was being broadcast here, of the Rio 2016 Paralympic Games at the closing ceremony, what the audience was then seeing was Dos Jogos Paralímpicos Rio 2016, all powered by machine learning. And so this will be a slightly more practical example of it here. And I'm also going to touch upon some of these here. But this is a very nice example. Has anyone used Google Translate in the last 3 or 4 months? And have you noticed that it actually has improved? Apparently, empirically, it really has. I think it's gone from, and don't quote me on this, but like 60 or 70% up to something like 90 or 95%. And that's because of machine learning.
How many languages are in there?
I actually don't know. I think it's well over 100 languages. And it may even go further than that. And it's also got some fun stuff in there. So it's got Klingon in there as well, so the Star Trek language, which is a real California techie thing.
But it needs.
I know. The California tech guys need this. So, but I think I'm actually within many of our products. So actually, did you know that again in this interim device that I'm holding here, what we know as the smartphone, but maybe replaced by something else in the future, what percentage of searches are done via voice? So you talking to the phone rather than you typing something in. Have a guess. What percentage?
10.
20.
Nearly 20, yeah. I think as of last year it was 16 and we expected this year to be about 20. Yeah. And in fact, if you say, I actually won't say that, but if I say, okay, Google, it will actually turn itself on and it's listening to me then. And then it enables me to do anything. What you may use it for, if you do use this, so 1 in 5 searches, but what you may use it for is to search for things. But actually you can do loads of things with it. You can set yourself a reminder. You can ask it to update your calendar. You can email somebody. You can book something. Many apps now actually have Google search listening capabilities built into them. It's really quite phenomenal.
But you're living in Ireland at the moment, and there's a wonderful video that comes on Facebook of 2 guys in a voice-operated lift, speaking to the lift in Irish English, and both of them going crazy because the lift doesn't know, got no clue what they're saying.
So whether it's been trained on Irish English yet, I'm not sure. As you know, I speak beautiful BBC English.
No, North English.
Now, have I done enough just to give you a little glimpse into what machine learning is? And think of what the possibilities of this is. Now, I mentioned Deep Blue or Garry Kasparov. So famously, 20 years ago, the self-taught, or sorry, the taught by IBM computer beat him. Now, does anyone know what Garry Kasparov is doing now, as well as playing chess? I presume he is teaching chess. What he is doing though, he has a league, a chess league, and instead of the computers against the humans, or somehow the machines taking over, he has a combined human and chess league. Because the computers are really good at some things and the humans are really good at other things. And so he actually has a combined. And what I'd like to offer you, because I'm an optimist, is that actually the worst dreams hypothesized in every single sci-fi movie you've ever seen won't necessarily come true. I think we will actually harness the power of and the incredible technology on which I'm going to show you a few of them now. And I think, well, actually, we will coexist extremely well and really use these devices to really extract an awful lot of value from our lives. Where this leads, I don't know, but certainly the technology is hurdling a lot.